That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I struggle with many films that come out these days. I also struggle with people that will create like a boring promo video and put it up online. Is they don't
Yeah.
understand you're making a handshake agreement with the audience.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Cafe podcast. Today, you are in for a treat. We have today Brandon Wasserburger from Firetribe TV, and he is a friend and a colleague, but also a brilliant video and brand storyteller, which I love his work. We've worked with him with some clients and also for our own brand, and he's currently serving technical colleges and universities on helping them tell their brand story and create brand story videos, which really elevates their brand awareness and is driving a lot more leads. They also work on social media, all kinds of other things. So you're going to want to tune in and find out what makes a good story and how to use video. We're going to dabble into the conversation about AI as well, how and when you should use it based on his professional experience. So Brandon, thank you for being with us. We're very excited to have you
I'm
here.
honored to be here. Honored to be here with you, Sally. It's the highlight of my week.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're in the cafe. We always start with what's in our mug. This is our new brand. It launched. Woo!
I am so stoked about your new brand.
Yeah, and let's tell us about your favorite mug there.
Do not worry. It's a dad joke.
Mhm.
I'm a dad, and sometimes I worry too much. So this was actually a birthday present for myself that I remind
Oh, good.
myself to lighten up.
Donut worry. And actually, I really want a cinnamon cake donut now that you
Not
mentioned
good
it.
for your health.
My favorite.
Yeah.
I saw some high-end craft donut shop that, their donuts are like $5 or $6 a piece. And I went in and there was not a single cake donut. I'm like, out. Gotta
Oh
have the
my
cake
goodness. Yeah.
donuts.
Are they getting a little too gentrified possibly, or just too?
I don't know. They make every single donut to order, so it takes like 20 minutes to get a donut also, which, a donut is good, but it's gotta be really good to spend $6 and wait a half
Yeah,
hour.
no kidding. No kidding. It's the time cost quality.
A
They picked
little
one.
Yeah. So, Brandon, I want to start before we dive into the video stuff. You have a really interesting kind of story about how you landed into this world of video and your experience in Hollywood. So, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about what your background is and where you're at now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, yeah, when I was growing up, I grew up in a beautiful town called Gig Harbor, Washington, but there's not a lot of the entertainment industry going on there. So I grew up, I didn't have any single connections in the industry, and honestly, that's the lifeblood of a career in the industry is you need to know people.
Yeah.
And but I grew up making little movies, little stop motion animations with my GI Joes and toys and stuff, and with my friends and my parents too. They were crime scene investigators in a murder mystery I made in the high school. So, through a series of providential events, I ended up finding my way into post-production, working on television series, airing to hundreds of thousands of households nationwide on all the major network or most major networks. So it's been really an awesome ride. But all the time that I've always thought, man, films are so captivating and so important, and entertainment, I think, is something that's often. I think that the word is cheap in our culture, and I think that we're kind of sitting on a pile of gold and don't realize it. Entertainment, in my
Yeah.
opinion, is the currency of communication. And so
Mhm.
if you want people to donate to your cause or enroll in your school, in our case, or buy your product, you do them a great service by entertaining them. And I used to be, when I was a young boy, I was sitting in a church pew one time and a missionary was talking about how they were, like, the work they were doing, feeding starving people and that kind of stuff. And I thought to myself, and back then I was a child of the 80s and 90s. So it was slide projectors. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this deserves a movie. Just as much as Tom Cruise deserves a movie, this deserves a movie to really compel people to partner with it. That idea of filmmaking and telling stories and entertaining people with a purpose of spreading more good in the world has always been in the back of my mind. And so while I was working on television and stuff, that was all great. But we were kind of doing is helping people escape, which is a service. you can do so much more with it. And so that's why I started my company, and that's why I've pursued the routes that I've pursued in nonprofit and in colleges and with in universities, as well as other kind of cause-driven brands.
That's amazing. And, our agency works primarily with nonprofits and rural health, which both are so
Yeah,
community
yeah.
centric, typically with a really strong heart mission and human centered approach, most of them. And I think it's often a thing that gets almost assumed that people know your
Mhm,
story. And much like in healthcare, there's jargon and, oh, yeah, everybody knows what this is.
mhm,
But I feel like it's something that is not a discipline that is intentionally sought. They expect the story to kinda tell itself.
mhm.
And so one of the things I wanna start with, and what I noticed when I've worked with you on projects, which have turned out
Oh,
stunning,
thank you.
honestly. The website is gonna be linked in the show notes. You have to check out his stuff. It's amazing. Was you have a very specific structure and almost a formula that you use, which every good script writer, every good storyteller, every author has a certain pattern that they follow to tell a story. So, can we just start with the basics of what is it that makes a good story, the parts of it, and we'll start there and then we'll dive into some of the more video stuff as well.
Yeah. So I think that there's a course I teach sometimes, and I call it How to Tell Your Brand Story by Stealing from Hollywood. And the things that I really love to focus on in our storytelling is two things. You need to have an interesting character, and there's a formula to
Mhm,
that. And you also need to have an interesting structure to your story. And I think if you think of it, I often think of it a lot like energy. So when you're listening to
mhm,
a song, if you just hear like a repetitive beat and it never changes, it's just the same thing. Kind of like I'm into all kinds of music. So kind of like sometimes house electronic music can be like that, very kind of
mhm,
almost like
mhm.
trance inducing in a way.
Yep.
But it can be kind of annoying for most of us, or it can be kind of boring for most of us. Like, we get it. Tell me something new now. And so stories are
Mhm,
built the same exact way. You got to have a kind of an opening conflict or hook that gets someone's attention.
mhm,
And it needs to be very interesting. It'll oftentimes be tied to the central problem that your story is going to attempt to solve. And then you need to have a kind of a, I like to map brand stories to the hero's journey. Even if we're trying to sell socks, you can map that sales pitch to a hero's journey. So you start out with some kind of conflict, then you have sort of the journey of getting there. Your character gets a little bit beat up along the way. Often has a gu and it
mhm,
has a guide come in, which is often your brand to help that character
mhm.
along. And then at the end, they defeat the dragon. That's sort of the idea, or they get the prize of whatever it is. Now, in a
Sure.
that's sort of the structure in a simple 3 act, and there's a lot of, like, any good chef, if you're gonna cook something, the more, sophisticated your ingredients and the more sophisticated your recipe, obviously, the more compelling your narrative, but the basic ingredients are always gonna be there. You can derive them
Sure.
from anything. And then on character side, which I think is probably the most valuable to your audience as well as most brand stories, is the characters you develop. I know that it's typically the people that are involved in the organization or the people that have been helped, but there's things that you can identify to make sure that they're screen worthy. Everyone is valuable. Everyone has a beautiful story. Everybody. But like books translating to films, sometimes books don't
Mhm.
translate well to films. Same with people.
Sure.
Sometimes people's stories don't translate well to screen, but the way you identify the ones that do are going to be people with what I would call a juxtaposition of incongruities. It's called incongruity theory. It just means you take two things that don't typically go together and put them together, like a
Sure.
tattooed grandma or a boxer that loves ballet. Those types of
Mhm.
things, or Batman's my favorite. Like, they're just bats and the man, and it's so far apart. You put them together, and all of a sudden, people lean in and want to know, why is this here? Or what's going on here? It creates questions in your viewer. It also creates, it's so funny because there's a big irony in nature is these incongruities exist in all of us. And it
Mhm.
seems like we don't think they should go together, but at the same time, they exist in all of us. It's a great way to capture someone's interest and at the same time
Mhm.
be relatable. And that's the part that I
Sure.
think is so wonderful. And that's why a lot of people's stories are screen worthy, especially if you can hone in on the incongruities.
That's
If
so
you drop in a character with incongruities into that 3 act structure
Mm.
I mentioned, you have a pretty compelling bucket of ingredients there to capture someone's attention and to influence them or persuade them towards doing some kind of action that you want them to do, which is hopefully a good thing. Okay, good action.
I love that, and I've never really thought about the character element of it.
Mhm.
In a world of marketing that says, "Oh, you gotta be a thought leader," there are some times that I see an ad or see a video and I'm like, "Yawn.
Yeah.
You should not be on that ad." In our market, the dealer owner has to be on the ad. It, like, drives me crazy.
Yeah,
It's
they're
the
kids.
same it's the same every doctor wants to be the star of the ad too. It's like, they're not good on camera.
The ones that drive me crazy, they'll be driving along, listening to the radio, and it'll be like for a painting company or something, and they'll have their kids talking on it. And I'm like, I know your kids are cute to you, and I love kids, but painting my house costs like 3, 5 grand. It's kind of a serious thing. I don't want your kids to tell me about it. I came out of the world of film and video and entered into the world of marketing, and I had to learn all of the marketing jargon and all the marketing strategies and things kind of late in the game. Just in the last,
Mhm,
I'd say 3 to 5 years, I've kind of caught up. And it's been so funny to
mhm.
me because I've been like, oh, we were already doing that when we were cutting TV shows, or we were already doing that when we were cutting together television ads. I've studied it a ton, and what I realized is that storytelling inherently has a sales pitch embedded in it. It's all it,
Mhm.
and I think that a lot of times for just straight sales people or just straight marketing people, they don't always realize that if they just tell a story, they're still pitching. It just doesn't feel like it. They're having too much fun, or they feel like they're not generating hard ROI because they're not saying buy this thing.
Yeah.
The data shows that if they tell a story, they structure their sales pitch in a story format, which a story inherently has a sales pitch built in, they'll sell more. They're actually doing
Mhm.
their company a bigger favor rather than trying to be like white
Right.
knuckle it.
Right, and I feel like in today's world, and as we see the different generations coming into the primary consumer audience, they don't wanna be
Mhm.
sold at.
They want to be
They
entertained.
wanna be, the millennials and the younger audiences who when I think about nonprofit, to up to this point, about 70% of the giving has been the boomer generation
Mhm.
who are in their 80s.
Right.
And y'all better get on board to draw in some of the, Gen X, the millennial, Gen Z. You've got to bring in some of those younger audiences,
Mhm.
and what's important to them and what resonates with them has to be aligned to a core ethos in the consumer.
Absolutely.
There historically, when you look at all the studies of donors by generation, we have a session we do called the love language of donors
Mm.
that goes over
That
each generation and kind of the
Mhm.
patterns of what we've seen. And boomers historically had really strong ties to education, to children's health.
Mhm.
They have specific historical charitable causes that they were really aligned to. Part of it came from their upbringing, from the world they knew, but it's not the same dealing with younger donors. But millennials are very generous.
Mhm. They
They
are.
just need to have that alignment, and I feel like the storytelling is where that alignment gets
Yeah,
exposed.
absolutely. I've seen it in
Yeah.
Gen Z too. They're very
Yeah.
aligned or very, generous. I think that, I was listening to one of my, brands that I look up to is Liquid Death Water, and I think my team is getting sick and tired of me talking about Liquid Death Water. But I think that there's a lot of transferable things for your audience and nonprofit here. I was listening to the founder speak, and he was saying, if you don't have any money to market, and if you don't have any a big strategy, if you don't have a big team, he goes, people, if I put out, say I was doing work for you and I put out some wild ad, some crazy,
Mm,
wild, entertaining, off the hook ad to promote what you're doing, a lot of people would be like, whoa, you're being too edgy. You're being too risky. And he said, it's actually the opposite. You can't afford to be bland. You don't have deep
right,
pockets like Coca-Cola where you can just play it safe and
right.
hire a celebrity or something to give some bland milk toast message. It's actually
Yeah.
irresponsible to be bland, to be safe is irresponsible. And that
Yes.
that really, I was like, that captures it. Their whole philosophy is they approach branding as entertainment. And when you got people, when you're trying to like get people to donate or partner or volunteer over social media, you got to treat it like what it is. It's an entertainment platform. How many people do you know like hop on Meta or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, and they're like, "I'm here to learn something." It's not very often. Or, "I'm here to learn about your offering." Not very
Yeah.
often. You're there to be
Right.
entertained, and if you entertain them and your offer is embedded or even just your brand is somewhere embedded, they'll like you. They'll know, like, and trust
Yeah.
you. I'll spend
Mm.
$5 on a can of liquid death water, we quantify it with
Mhm.
water, uh,
Yeah.
because they care enough to make my life interesting, to make my life more fun. It's just a can of water, but I'll give them an extra buck
Yeah.
because they actually care
Yeah.
enough to make life spicy and exciting and fun.
That's interesting. I thought it was another energy drink, so I had never tried it, and that I was in a setting at a music event where it was the only water. I said, "Can I have a bottle of water?" And they hand me this can. I'm like, "No, this isn't what I
Yeah.
want." I think built into their brand is that juxtaposition that you
Their
talked about.
slogan is
The
don't be afraid, it's just
because
water. Yeah.
it looks like it's gonna be another, energy
Yeah.
drink, and I'm just not down with those
Right.
because I have a background in medicine. I don't like
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. No, I got you there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you bring up a really good point around the bland kind of thing. And I feel like, I know you're not supposed to say, I feel like all the gurus say. I believe that's a risk with everyone flocking just to AI to create all your
Mm,
content for you.
mhm.
Because we've gone from this vanilla to, vanilla bean, where we all are kind of looking to the same models to create innovative content for us. But I feel like at the end of the day, it ends up being another version of the same
Mhm.
as.
That's true.
And from a story standpoint, we always encourage our folks to, you have to write your story, and then AI might help you make it
Yeah.
better, tighten it up, or find, this is my audience. Have I used funny examples that are hilarious to me as a Gen Xer that the millennials will be like, crickets too? I've used AI in that very scene where they're like, nobody's gonna relate to this example that you used in your story here. How are you seeing that with video as well? I know we've chatted about we're not anti-AI people, neither one of us. There's a right way and a right time to use it. So when we're talking about video and storytelling, what is your advice to small teams that are trying to expand their impact, but also don't have a Hollywood producer on staff?
Yeah, I think that I use AI. I feel that AI is extremely helpful and it's like a big calculator, you know? And it's or like an automation. When you get an automated email or message on LinkedIn or over email, it instantly puts a bad taste in your mouth. And
Yes.
it's because
Yes.
you can tell that the people that made that put in absolutely zero effort to get to know you
Right.
personally. And especially for nonprofits, those people,
Mhm.
it's all very, very emotionally charged. It's very,
Yeah.
and it's important that it is that. And you got to have that human connection. And I feel
Mhm.
like AI, you got to use it as a tool to make human connections. What I mean by that is you need to leverage it to help you maybe break something better, but you need to use your human taste or your human judgment to steer the ship. So
Right.
I don't care if you write everything with AI, but you definitely need to use your human judgment and maybe some other people in your life's judgment, whether they're your staff or your someone you know, or even better, someone that's a donor in the case of nonprofits, to check it, get their opinion on it. Because
Yep.
I know that AI has helped me improve my writing in a lot of ways. It's also
Mhm.
helped me accelerate my writing, but I definitely still
Mhm.
check it with the
Yeah.
instincts that I've learned over years that have gotten me here, and also against data and stuff like that. The other way
Yeah.
that we use AI to make sure AI is extremely human is
Mhm.
so a lot of our films are interview based. So you'll be interviewing
Mhm.
somebody, and in nonprofit, this is a trick you can do. You can use this. You can shoot with your phone. One thing I forgot
Mhm.
to mention earlier is if you're looking to tell a really good story, you have to have dramatic transformation. That's like whenever we tune in, we want to see the before and after of like a home remodel or
Sure.
a big weight loss or someone who got glammed up or something. A big before and after. That everybody wants to see that. It's like a magic trick. When it comes to nonprofits, that's the gold you guys are sitting on. That's the currency is you get to show before and after of the people you're helping. Obviously some of you are working very sensitive material and you can't always tell their story, but you can tell a composite of their story. You can have staff tell
Mhm.
stories, But the more dramatic the shift, the less milquetoast your story is. And
Right.
so the way that we'll leverage AI in that is we'll say, okay, AI, I've got these 5 people that I could interview, and these are each of their stories. Which one has the most click-worthy story? Or which one has the most, which one do you think? And it'll tell you what it thinks, and you kind of match it up to see what you think. It's usually pretty common sense. Then I tell it,
Mhm.
okay, you know this person's story. Give me 5 interview questions put into a 3-act narrative, problem, emotion, solution, call to action, or 4-act narrative, I guess, in this case. 3 or 4-act narrative that will get high engagement, and it will
Mhm.
write your interview questions for you. And that is a really good task for AI because that's kind of a repeated thing that you're going to do over and over and over
Mhm.
again. And the writing of those is really important. How you word the questions is really important, but it's also
Sure.
something that's super repetitive and it can take a lot of cognitive
Sure.
load. But then you're going to flip the script kind of on AI in a sense. We often ask questions and write prompts of AI and it gives us answers. In this case, we're flipping it. We're asking
Right.
questions of people and getting their responses. So we're getting authentic human responses, but it's all structured
Sure.
in a narrative.
Yeah, that's super smart. I'm thinking, "Oh, I should do that for my podcast interviews."
To
I'm
help,
going to
we do
try
it.
it.
Yeah, we do it for podcasts all the time. Yeah.
That's awesome. And there are some amazing AI tools, from a video
Mhm,
standpoint in terms of taking an interview like this and being able to edit
mhm,
it is amazing. We use a tool that has AI built into it to take out the first part by just editing a Word doc, which I love.
mhm.
So that we use a tool every time we have one of these episodes and it's terrific. So that's awesome. So tell me if we want to really get specific, like a lot of our folks are service
Mm.
based. So one of our clients is a youth orchestra. They offer music lessons for world class. Like some of these kids are going off of this program to
Oh,
Juilliard
wow.
and there's tuition assistance. So it's for any child, regardless of, financial place in DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Mhm.
So help me just come up, and I know I'm putting
Cool,
you
it's
on the
fine.
spot here,
Um,
but help me come up with how we could tell that story. I mean, these kids are unbelievable. They are so talented. And honestly, I've interviewed a couple of them, and I think, holy cow, I need to do more with my life. From listening to these 16-year-olds that are literally have vision to change the world. And music has done that. It's not just the learning the skill, it's the discipline, the community, the all of the musical and personality, character traits that are learned through being part of music. So help me just to pick a pretend character and how we might set that up.
yeah, I mean, first of all, when it comes to young people, you have to be obviously, you gotta be careful, and you know this, Sally. Like, if we're just being really, like, chess player about this, really,
Yeah.
blue coal chess player, story mechanic about this, I would look for someone who has is difficult of a this is gonna sound exploitive, and it's not, but I'm going to tell you in a very how to do this ethically. I would look for someone who has a very difficult story. That would be my first look, and the reason why is because they're gonna have the biggest transformation, and
Mhm. Mhm.
also and the way that I find it ethical or dignifying is that, in a sense, if the person is up for it, that's the thing, that's the key. They have to be up
Uh-huh.
for it. If
Yeah.
they're up for it, it allows them to leverage their story, their pain, their experience to help a massive amount of people. Now, if they don't want to do it, then it's exploitive, obviously.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
also still are going to be sensitive in how you tell the story. That's what we're really important. We would
Sure.
find really important is you do tell it with dignity. You don't in a
Right.
high level of sensitivity. And that's the other reason I love about the interview format is that they only can answer as much as they want to. If they don't want to go crazy
Right.
deep, we don't need to know about the crazy deep stuff.
Right.
But it empowers that person to leverage their pain and their story and their past and the ugliness things that they've been through to do some good in the world and actually leverage it as a superpower, which is something we should all be doing. And, in the
Right.
capacity that we're able. So I would start there. So start with your character, find someone with a big transformation, and then I would look for incongruities because these are charming things about them. I would be like, so
Mhm.
what instrument did they play? Why? That's probably
Mhm.
going to be a huge thing. It could be somebody that's I don't know. I don't want to create stereotypes or anything there, but It could be somebody that's really has a diverse range of interests, right? Maybe they're interested
Mhm.
in, if they're 16, interested in old cars, but they also play the electric guitar, or they're interested in, I don't know, it could be any sort of
Sure.
thing. Interested in something way over here, but they're interested in this as well.
Sure.
And I would I'd make sure to get those in there at near the front of the story. And that way we really get to
Mhm.
know them and the audience will connect with them.
Mhm.
Then we hear their journey of hardship, how the organization helped them, where they're at now, and what they're planning to do in the world. And that's a pretty
Sure.
basic format, but it will give you a very powerful story. And that would be something that I would run at donor events to get an extra zero on the
Mm.
check for donations. I
Sure.
would run it again. Young people is a safety issue, so I'd run it online if their parents or they consented and that sort of thing.
Sure.
That's a great way to go. There's a guy named Ben Owen, you guys should all follow if you're a nonprofit, on LinkedIn. He's also on Facebook.
Okay.
I've done a little bit of work with him, and he is turning there's like the most dangerous zip code in Memphis, Tennessee, the most deadly zip codes in America, dangerous street in America. And he used to be a very addicted to drugs and doing all sorts and just trapped in some really terrible things. And he got out of that, and he made a promise to God that if God got him out, he would go back and pull the people out that he left behind. And
Well,
he became an entrepreneur, and he started buying all of these drug houses and turning them into safe houses for women and children. So he
nice.
says, I'm
Amazing.
changing dope houses into hope houses. So not only does
Nice.
he personally have this radical transformation, but he's creating these radical stories of transformation in the block in Memphis. Well, he can
Mhm.
pick
That's
any
amazing.
one of those people he's working with. They all have
Mhm.
crazy stories, you know?
Right.
And the thing that I think for nonprofits that really is the biggest missed opportunity before them is that they have more technology in their pocket than Alfred Hitchcock did in an
Yes.
entire studio. And they can just
Yeah.
and people really don't care how it looks sometimes. So that has its own purpose. If they just get their phone out and they find people that are willing to help and tell their story, ask them one question or two questions about who they are, their story,
Mhm.
and how your organization helped. You could be cranking out content all the time. You could be emailing that out to
Yeah.
partners to see what their work is doing. So there's a lot of ways to put it in a simple entertainment format that
Mhm.
serves and does good, that people will actually wanna watch.
Sure, sure. That's amazing. And I'm excited to look up Ben
Yeah,
Owen. So thanks
yeah.
for sharing that. We all have the smartphone, most of us. When is the right time to hire somebody like yourself? Because on social media, that kind of authentic, really relatable, feels like you're in the scene with them with a smartphone is awesome and it keeps that content. But when is the right time to budget and hire a production team?
Yeah. So this for basically for nonprofits, if you run a nonprofit.
Yeah, or any business really, but nonprofits for rural health, that kind of thing. Obviously, again, those two specific
Well,
niches have a lot of privacy and compliance things. We're going to assume that is all taken care of.
yeah.
If you need to know what those things are, look it up in the Leadership Cafe. We've got
Mhm.
resources for you. So,
I would say when people hire us, it's because I'll talk about it from a business angle, and then I'll talk about it from a nonprofit angle. So from a business
okay.
perspective, people hire us to produce their social media, smartphone content when they can't
Mm-hmm.
do it themselves, when they don't have time to do it themselves.
Okay.
And I think that's where everyone should start because it's almost free. If you have the time to
Yeah.
do it, then it's definitely free. But it's kind of like sprint testing your offer. Every day you're posting, and I know organic results or organic feedback is a little bit topsy-turvy, but if you can
Mm-hmm.
watch the likes and the comments and get a general sense of what's getting
Right.
traction and what's not. It's not perfect by any means, but it's something. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, you're gonna develop that story, and you're gonna develop that, it's like a bunch of cheap little tests that you're running on your story and your offering, and you're trying to figure out what sticks. Once you've got that figured out, and once you have a platform that, with a large audience, I would say, or
Mm-hmm.
with a big deep pocket audience, then it's
Mm-hmm.
time to professionalize your brand. It's kinda like just starting out as maybe a contractor or freelancer. maybe you just come up with a quick logo or come up with a quick logo and slogan and you run with it. And then you build up your client base. And then it's like, I want people to perceive me as more professional, or I want people to be more engrossed with my brand, or I want my brand to do more. I want to attract a larger audience and I want to start to entertain them more, to draw them to
Mhm.
magnetize them towards me. That's when you would hire either a staff person or a company like ours, a team. And a lot of times this stuff takes a team of people to do. That's when you would bring
Mhm.
in a team like us who can take your brand and take it to its apex. That's what I view it as. Making a video for your brand is the apex media your brand could. It's the most embodiment besides you that a brand can be,
Mhm.
right? So
That's
that's
so
sort of
good.
the track I'd follow. And when it comes to nonprofits, especially like rural health or any kind of nonprofits, it's sort of the same train as far as you need to get good at consistency and showing up and telling your story and telling the story of your mission, whatever it is. And you need to be pragmatic too. And I think that viewers, in some cases, want to see more grassroots content from a nonprofit. They don't want to see millions of dollars dumped into an incredible film at that juncture.
Right.
They want to see that you
Right.
have a base, a lifeblood, and of things going on. And then I'd say once you kind of get some heavy momentum, then you would hire us for like a donor event where you're
Mhm.
playing for a large audience that can't whenever you're playing in a large room, a large audience, if your audio is terrible because it's on your phone,
Yeah.
the internet's way forgiving there, but it's not forgiving in that type of environment.
Right.
Bad lighting, it's on a projector, so they're not going to be able to see the person very well, type of thing. That's when
Right.
you want a little more craft. And then in those environments too, people are usually glammed up and they're out on the town and they want
Mhm.
to they want to feel like they're at a movie, right? And we used to do
Right.
a ton of films for nonprofits that way that would be played at major donor events. And these people were
Yeah.
people of means and they're on vacation, but also mixing in some philanthropy. So they need to be
Right.
entertained and that's another way.
Right.
That's a way to elevate the amount of emotion you can draw out of a person too, is in
Mhm.
that stage of the game. Sometimes you have a captive audience that's going to do more legwork possibly than a short form little shot
Sure.
clip that you put up on Facebook, you know?
That's really good, and the orchestra program I was talking about, they just had their 65th anniversary,
That's awesome.
and that's exactly what happened. They ended up doing a 8-minute video, which is longer than typically we would shoot
Sure.
for, but it was so cool because one of the most beloved conductors was the teacher. He was the student 50 years ago.
Mm,
And then there was someone in the middle who was his student who's now a teacher, and then somebody current who's now under this 3rd generation of conductors and teachers who give back to this program because it changed their life so much. And literally, I felt like such a sob because every time I watched it, I cried. And I'm not a
yeah.
musician. But it just made me so appreciate the mission and the longevity of it. I mean, to be in business for 65 years
Mhm. Yeah,
is a big
that's
accomplishment,
huge.
but it was just so meaningful to see. And that most beloved conductor was the teacher for their existing head conductor
Oh, that's
also.
cool.
So it just kind of tied everything together. It was so good, and I loved that they were able to invest in that for that big
Yeah.
event. Yeah, we don't have it to put on the website, but we need it
Yeah, I'm and
because that should
that's
live.
the type of stuff too. And the length of your film, I feel is people get caught up on should it be 2 minutes, 4 minutes? And
Yeah.
it's we dealt with this in television a lot. It's the power of the story that does it have enough fuel to drive it for 8 minutes? It
Sure.
probably did. And then you also it was a
Yeah.
the context thing too. It's all about like
Mhm.
that handshake relationship with the audience. That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I struggle with many films that come out these days. I also struggle with people that will create like a boring promo video and put it up online. Is they don't
Yeah.
understand you're making a handshake agreement with the audience. If you bore me for 5 seconds on TikTok, you just robbed me of 5 seconds I'll never get back. When you had the opportunity to entertain me and make
Mhm.
me like you know? It's now I'm looking at you more as a brigand than as a friend,
Mm.
as a foe versus a friend.
Yeah.
And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with these other with live events and things. It's like, if you're telling a really incredible story that has a huge, like you said, I can't believe I cried because of how much he changed people's lives. That's the massive
Mhm.
transformation part. The guy that had such an
Mhm.
impact, you just wanted to keep
Mhm.
watching it for quite a while, right? That's the thing that I think
Wow.
it's either big incongruity in character or big transformation. Those are the things that drive people to want to learn more. There's another guy I've been trying to think about this, how to transfer this, and I've actually thought about this for nonprofits quite a bit. I don't remember the guy's name. I watch his videos all the time. I should, but on Facebook and probably on other platforms, there's this guy, and he'll pretend to be like poor or down and out, or he's having a rough day, and he'll
Mhm.
go up to a homeless person. And he'll say, "Hey, do you got $2? I'm down and out." And if that person's a lot of times he'll find them, go, "I don't have it right now, but I'll go find it," or they'll want to help him somehow, or
Yeah.
they'll just give him an encouraging word, and then he'll turn around and give them like 10 grand or a house
Mhm.
or a car.
Yeah. I've seen him too. I don't
And
know his name, but I love
you
those
look at the
videos.
engagement and it's off the charts. Now, that guy turns around and says to that audience, "Hey, donate $5 to my cause. This is what I'm doing." Do you think he would struggle to
Mhm.
get $5 from people? No, not a bit, because they get that huge emotional reaction to that massive transformation, the turning of the tables, the incongruities, the probably relatively wealthy man pretending to be poor. I mean, it has all those ingredients to a good story, and it almost is like he took that. You remember that show Candid Camera? I think that's what it's called?
Mhm.
N nobody
Yeah.
on this
For all you
nobody
folks,
in your
it was a real show.
nobody in your audience probably knows what that is, but or Punk'd, I think, is another version of it. It's like this idea of hiding cameras and playing tricks on people.
Yeah.
This guy is hiding cameras and playing tricky blessings on people,
Mhm.
tricky,
Yeah.
life-changing good things on people. That's if Liquid Deathwater was gonna brand a nonprofit, that's what they would do. "Hey, let's trick this
Yeah.
person by giving them $1,000,000." It's just like so that's I don't know how to translate that to the masses of nonprofits out there, but I do think that it's worth your audience investing some thought in that. Even asking
Yeah.
ChatGPT or AI that question, "Hey, this guy's
Sure.
doing this stuff. I do this. What videos could I shoot on my phone to do something similar?" Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I just came up with that idea on this call, actually. I might do that after we're done is ask
I know.
AI.
Me too. We'll share our notes. That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that. I love that. I love this conversation. We could go on and on, but we
No.
don't have
Yeah.
time. So, thank you, Brandon, for being here with us. And I'm going to ask you to share with us your 2 or 3 favorite video projects of yours or other brands if you want. I'll put them in the show notes as well. And if people want to find you, where should they look?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Brandon Wasserburger. You can spell it right. Our company is called Firetribe, just Firetribe, straight up Firetribe Inc. And our website is firetribe.tv. And I'd say
Nice.
my favorite projects have been, I really love the underdog story. And I really feel like technical colleges have a massive offering right now, and they have a lot of
Hmm.
momentum. But for the last several decades, they've been out-branded by universities, and I love universities, don't get me wrong, but the universities have played the brand game much better than the technical colleges have. So for a long time, technical colleges have been flyovers. So whenever we make a brand film that makes a technical college look incredible, it makes them look
Hmm.
equal to or better than an Ivy League school, for example. That's my
Yeah.
favorite project right now. And uh,
Yeah.
we did this film for a company, a client of ours called Wyotech up in Larry, Wyoming.
Yeah.
And they were in the middle of a rebrand. Their chips were way down. They were restructuring. And when I say their chips were down, I don't mean their education was high. Like their student experience was awesome, but they were brand wise needing to restructure. And so they
Sure.
hired us to come in and shoot a brand film, and they'd actually written a pretty compelling script. And what we did is we took it and we added film elements and techniques to it, and we shot it, and it just blew their mind. Like it elevated their team's morale to no end. And I
Hmm.
met students, and I was talking to the student one time on campus, and she said, "When I saw the car burn out in that movie, I knew I had to go to Wyotech." And I was like, "That's when we
Nice.
knew we hit it. We did it." I saw another
Yes.
student, he was like, "I watched that brand film to get pumped up before class." And I was like, "For real?" Like, I didn't realize we'd hit the nail, we'd hit it out of the park that well. But And we were a small, scrappy team back then. It was like 5
Mhm.
years ago, but that was probably one of my favorite projects to date. So
Yeah, it's great. It's great
aged pretty well.
video.
Yeah.
And in today's world with all the pushback on student loans and all that, technical colleges and trade schools and all of that are so
They have to
vital.
tell
So
and they have to do a
I
better
love
job telling why they're valuable, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
anyhow, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah.
for sure. Well, thank you, Brandon, for being with us. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, listener, to the Leadership Cafe podcast. If you like this lesson, please give it a thumbs up or leave a review. We'd love to share the word about our podcast with more small and solo marketing teams. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.